open to other avenues of mental health, but when some people are passionate, they stick with one and they become experts in this area. And today we have an expert in this area, Dr. Robert Lancer. And thank you so much, Dr. Rob, for being on Moments of Clarity. Welcome back.
No problem. My pleasure. My pleasure.
And I want to welcome callers 866-826-1340. And if you have any questions for Dr. Rob or anything like that, 866-826-1340. Or also, if you had any stories where anxiety has gotten the better of you. Have you ever driven home because you didn't know if you closed the garage door and it bothered you all day? That's an intrusive thought. Have you ever had to clean your house spotless because you were going to go out of town or someone was coming over? Or vacuum each way, one way or the other way? Or certain foods or certain textures? There's some signs early on, especially like even what clothes children want to wear, things like that could be signs of anxiety early on. And Dr. Rob, I know that you know this, but sometimes a rough childhood can lead to anxiety and OCD in adulthood.
Right. I mean, exactly. While I've been working with OCD, anxiety is the most prevalent feature and the prominent feature. So I believe that I call it the anxious mind, that people have OCD, social anxiety, phobias, just because of the way their mind operates and the way that their basically their nervous system is designed. And that could be altered during childhood by trauma. Any type of change can create fear, anxiety. So I do specialize in OCD, but over the years working with OCD, it's led to the basis of what's really when people fear things. It's fear, an intolerance for fear, intolerance for anxiety, intolerance for what ifs and doubts, and also catastrophizing, which is a cognitive way, a way of a thinking style that can make something that is not such a big deal into the end of the world.
Absolutely. And it's everyone's their own reality. It might not seem logical to somebody just like to their friend or family member or someone on the outside saying like, well, what's the big deal? But to someone's own fear, that's their own reality. That's their own hell that they live in, and it's real to them. Hold on, Dr. Rob, we have a caller.
Sure.
We have a caller, Caroline, on the phone. Caroline, thank you for calling in. Welcome to Moments Clarity.
Hi, Tiffany.
Hi.
How are you?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Thanks
I
for calling
you on
in.
my Facebook and my Twitter.
Oh, okay. So, Caroline, hi. I know the name. I won't say your last name if you don't want, but thank you for calling in.
No, that's fine. You can say my last name. I've been writing since March of last year, and I'm past that point. Being an advocate, you have to be public.
Was this Caroline Cook?
Yes, it is.
Welcome. Thank you for calling in. First-time caller, too. Thank you for supporting.
I'm trying to get in for a few minutes here while I have a break. I heard some of the talk with the doctor as far as anxiety goes, and mine didn't really creep up until after the PTSD dropped down. And it was kind of like a leftover symptom, but it was definitely high and racing, especially at night. And it almost, for me, my experience, it was like in the morning I was good, I was calm, I had peace. And as I got to the evening and as I got tired, it was almost like Alzheimer's dropping in. I actually had more moments of panic. That was when I started texting people. I was scared of being alone. I was scared of being taken. I was homeless at the time. So, it came in waves. In the morning, like I said, I was doing really good. I was exercising. I was eating, having coffee, doing all the regular day stuff. But in the evening, it just ganged up on me like a shower, and it was really hard to let go.
Dr. Rob, can you hear her? You have any feedback?
I mean that brings up a few very important points. That A is that these things should be brought on by traumatic events, or there could be a catalyst. It could be in your system, and it's just a catalyst. Also, it's important that people realize that there's not one specific time of the day when people have thoughts. Some people wake up in the morning with terrible thoughts. Some people wake up in the afternoon or at night. And I've seen the worst is where someone is actually having anticipatory anxiety the night before about something that could potentially happen, and when they have anticipatory anxiety, it's not something pleasurable that could happen. It's always something that is like in the worst case scenario. So it could plague someone. I feel what the caller is saying,
Caroline. Yeah.
I understand that anxiety could bring anyone down to his knees. So there's nothing to be ashamed of. And if a person is suffering from that, people have to realize it's like walking into the wind. That's blowing at you 100 miles an hour. Anxiety is literally that powerful and that challenging.
Mm-hmm. It is. It surrounds your thoughts, and it just hangs up on you. And I don't even know what even triggered it. It could have been the fear of the night, or maybe a fear of a conversation, and then it would just explode, and I would lose control completely. But the solution that I got with the medication that they ended up putting me on just so I could agree to get off the street actually created more anxiety for me. And they were not willing to switch it up or find something else that worked for me. And I literally had to finally break off of it because it was consuming me more during the day than my previous anxiety without meds. So, I was really struggling to find peace with it, and my family was determined that I needed to be medicated at the time. But once I got off of it, I slowly began to feel like myself. And I don't know if it was because of the 10-month period of brain-numbing meds.
If you're on the street, you could have been in survivor mode, too, and that strikes a lot of intrusive thoughts.
Right. I mean, the mind is more powerful than any medication, so it could have been a multiple factors.
Yeah, I agree, and it was a challenge being homeless because I really met people who were worse off than me, and I understood that fully, and I knew that my journey at the time was more about understanding mental health, what had happened to me, the sexual assault before that in 2008, and why it came down then in 2014.
Like those kind of things can really have a ripple effect, Caroline.
Oh, yeah, and have to do my own research, because when I spoke with doctors or even physicians or a therapist, they were all laughing at me because I wasn't a veteran. And I wasn't insulted by that, because I'm honored to be with them, and they actually welcomed me while I was homeless and made me feel at home. But to not understand that a traumatic event could cause PTSD and anxiety after that with the depression, it was really kind of an awakening, because I see that unless they have a lived experience, they can't share that with you, and they can't help you walk through.
Right, and that's what's inspired me to take on my mission of not only educating people but treating them and helping them see things from the perspective of someone who's suffering, not just someone who learned it out of a book. Someone very practical who understands how they went through the suffering. I mean, I think people in general have hard time relating to something that hasn't happened to them.
Right.
It's kind of like a human fallacy.
And I respect that totally, Doctor, because I think that when I did have the conversations and they could see by the look in my eyes that there was still panic and fear, I think they were more scared that it would happen to them, that it was contagious, than to address any kind of compassion whatsoever.
I'm going to sneeze my PTSD on you.
Well, no, but I think it makes people, when anyone ever comes with fear and anxiety, it makes a person question their own stability and their own fears and anxieties in life. So, as basically over the years, I've prided myself on being able to listen to the sufferer, be able to interpret and try to heal them. So there is a need in psychology. I think there is a bigger need to put on people, when they say they specialize in something, they truly specialize and can help that person, so that person doesn't lose hope when they have the courage to step forth and go for therapy.
Right.
And that's part of the reason why I started talking about it. I thought maybe if I could save one life with my experience, I'm going to be doing something for my mission that I knew was bigger than me at the time. And I just felt like if I could connect with people and connect other people together, and then they realize that they're not alone, and then professionals to walk in that door and feel vulnerable enough to understand that there is a lived experience there that maybe they can learn something from too. not to say that they don't know what they're doing, but to give that aspect of, the ramifications of anxiety and depression and PTSD, because there's some symptoms with PTSD that no one is talking about, and I remember vividly that created a lot more anxiety in me. And they were
Dr.
physical.
Rob, are you organizing your desk drawer at the moment?
No. I just think
Are we
I think
organizing
that I actually
on
wanted,
the show?
I wanted to read something. I wanted to read something out loud, and I was trying to find it.
I just hear this cluttering. I'm like,
I actually want to find something.
I just playfully
that I
teasing.
wrote.
It just sounds like you were organizing. We're talking about
No, I
obsessive
just wanted
compulsive.
to find something that I wrote. What I'm saying is, I want to find a part of my book where I explain the meaning
Carolina,
of why
just
and
was
how.
distracting. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Find the part of the interview where in my book where it says the importance of why. And I spoke to Dr. Jennigy, who's my mentor at Harvard, and he runs a clinic up there, the McLean Clinic. And the most important thing that he states is that there's some type of meaning attached to the struggling. That a person is not just struggling without a purpose. And I think that Caroline is very brave, and that she's found some meaning in all of her struggles, and I think that she's on point. And it's
Agreed.
wonderful what the spirit that she has.
Caroline, I'm excited. What a treat for you to call in too, and you should be on my show one day when you're ready.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it very much, and I appreciate getting a chance to talk to both of you about it, because I think it brings further to light that there is a stigma, but it's totally a misconception of what mental health is.
Yes.
And that it could happen to anybody, just like
it's
a car accident.
Trauma.
Yeah.
So anything that was traumatic to someone and that had stress about it, post-trauma stress, it's just a lot of times it was related to military because it was shell shock and things. But, I mean, that's what made me a therapist. I walked in and I found my mother on the floor, and she had a brain aneurysm and never woke from it. And then two grandparents, and then a father that died, and all in college. And so I became a therapist just from that. But I get triggered from fear of abandonment just from losing so many people in such a short amount of time. And that was my trauma. And I feel like as if I'm reliving it sometimes just when someone goes on a vacation, or like I've gone through it during a breakup or stuff. Just even if I wanted the guy to leave, I still felt it. It's just crazy. It's just
that alludes to like what I talk about. I'm sorry, Caroline, to interrupt you, but that alludes to that doubt, fear, anxiety, and uncertainty kind of runs through all these anxiety disorders.
Yes, it does, and it runs through depression and other mental illness and mental health issues. And I've tried to reiterate that on Twitter, that, you know what, this flows over to each and every diagnostic symptom. You're not alone. Everyone has that lack of confidence and lack of self-awareness and totally doubting themselves 100% of the time all day long and just feeling like a failure. If you can get past that point, your growing has to be more aware of what triggers you and what moves you forward. And it's a learning experience. And, you know, some people are willing to walk through it, and I've met some people who are not. And I just have to be a friend and just, you know, understand and trust that it's their own timing. I don't have any control over that.
Yeah, I do believe to a certain extent it has to do with an inner critic, where you're talking about of that voice inside of you. And I guess some people are unfortunately awakened to it sooner than they want to, or some people go through their whole lives kind of beating to the drum of what they fear with anxiety and not even realize it. So the acceptance and the understanding that it's actually there is of key importance.
Yes. Well, I hate to sign off with you both.
Well, thank you so much.
The opportunity.
What a treat. And we'll talk
so
and,
much.
of course, keep in touch. And thanks again for calling into Moments of Clarity, Carolyn. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm truly humbled.
Bye.
All righty. Bye-bye.
And I want to welcome more callers, 866-826-1340. You have an expert here from New York, licensed New York psychologist. And I have to admit, and just put this out there, and I don't want to sound inappropriate, but I was telling you yesterday, Dr. Rob, like, you look like a model, and you said that kind of was right, but and then you said, well, that's kind of why I got into this, and so I want to kind of elaborate a little bit more.
So what I meant was that
you don't look like the average male psychologist, and I don't know what that even looks like.
I don't look like the average male in high school or now that suffers from an anxiety disorder.
Touche.
And that's the whole point.
Exactly.
That's the whole point of the stigma is if I lined up the people that come into my office and I put them, people wouldn't